Hi, welcome to Chisholm Prism. My name is Taylor Chisholm, and today in this video, I'm going to tell you how I make living in the city affordable and how you can save some money too. As we all know, things are getting more expensive. Our everyday needs to the rise in cost of apartments, especially in bustling cities where a lot of people want to live. And with those rise of costs, there's a lot more consideration about where we're putting our money. For me, myself, I live in Chicago, Illinois. I think it's a very affordable and beautiful city to live in. And I make a lot of content on my channel more about Chicago if you're interested. And there's ways that I've shifted my life to have a more cost-effective way of living that I think might benefit you if you're interested as well, because again, who wouldn't like to see more dollar signs in their bank account at the end of the day? This video is for you if you want just a couple of money savvy tips to help improve your quality of life while living in a city. I'm gonna list out 5 key essential things that I have done in my life that have saved me a lot of money and hopefully can do the same for you. For number 1, not having a car. I don't have a car. A lot of people that I know who live in Chicago don't have a car. Honestly, I don't know anyone who has a car here. In my circle of people, on average, owning a car will cost you $10,728 per year. Just a depreciating asset that you're throwing money in a fire. I live in Chicago, so there's a lot of great public transportation and ways to get around that kind of eliminates you having a car. The L train or the CTA buses, or there's divvy bikes and e-scooters. It's a very walkable city, which I really admire. And that saves on a lot of money. If you haven't seen already, I have made a whole exposing the CTA of Chicago video where I talk more about public transportation and things that you gotta watch out for. And it also eliminates a lot of traffic for you. Depending on if it's like a busy event day, maybe there's backup on some of the transportation systems, but ultimately versus you having a car and being stuck in Chicago traffic, I will take that. There's a time I was stuck in traffic for about 4 hours just trying to get 2 miles through downtown. It's convenience but not having to deal with maintenance and upkeep and insurance and gas money and parking. Cities like Los Angeles, where you kind of really do need a car, or Atlanta, you need a car to get around to these areas because it's so heavily dependent on your car and roads to get around. If you can move to a city where you don't need a car, it will save you a lot of money and headache. And I also get the joy of having a car. Like, I do miss like having late night rides and going to like far stores in different towns and stuff. But for that, I do recommend, I've used a Zipcar a lot that's located throughout the city, or any like ride share kind of apps where you can just rent a car instead. And because if you don't need it that often. For number 2, living with the roommate. So I live with my sister here in this apartment. When I tell you the amount of space and money you save by getting a 2-bedroom with another person, 2 bedrooms will cost the same amount as you just having a 1-bedroom by yourself paying that rent. Ultimately, if you live closer downtown, it's gonna be more expensive than if you live further on the outskirts. It's like, what are you willing to trade off? The amenities, the appliances, upkeep, the management, the location, the in-unit, whatever. Where you live in the country also matters. So like Chicago compared to New York is huge. I get this a lot in my videos. Well, Chicago is still expensive. But like, relative to who? If you're in a city, it's gonna be some money, but there's ways to get around this. So I'm making this video comparing it to a city like New York. Crazy. I talked to someone a couple months ago and they were so excited to move to New York. That's been their dream for a while. And in my head, I couldn't help but think, I'm like, do you understand the economic situation New York is in right now? Like, it seems like everybody's struggling and living in a shoebox. For example, I live in an older building. I am in a 2-bedroom living with my sister, so we split the rent. In total, the rent is $1,700. That's really affordable and honestly a lot cheaper than the average 1-bedroom apartment if you're by yourself. These are all things to think about when it comes to what's affordable for you and how you want to plan out where you live. Even if you can get a couple of roommates, like living in a 3-bedroom or a 4-bedroom house, it's even more space. Sometimes you get a whole house to yourself if you can find some other roomies to live with. I have a friend who lives by me and she lives in a whole house. It's a 4-bedroom and she rents it out with like 3 other girls. If someone moves out, then they'll just find another girl to live in their room, and she's been doing that for years, maybe like 4 years. And if you are looking for someone, you probably end up in a platform like Craigslist, Facebook, or any other like roommate matching services. What I've seen, I do like Facebook Marketplace for looking for roommates in apartments, see their profile, who they are, and kind of stalk them a little bit before you engage with them at all. An example for myself, when I first moved to Chicago, I actually ended up rooming with 2 guys that I didn't know. My friend was associated with one of them and they were looking for a roommate, and I just so happened to also be moving to Chicago. It's not a bad option, and I also get wanting to have your own space. But if you are in a budget crunching mode, or you're just trying to save some extra money, like getting a roommate isn't bad, and it's more common than you think. For number 3, I'm gonna title this one Discipline. I think a lot of us in this realm that we live in with social media and reality TV and all of these things that you see, these lavish lives that people live, and they're driving these really nice cars and they have this really nice apartment and they have this really cute dog, and it's making us all want to live this same lifestyle and feel like we're like keeping up with the Joneses, keeping up with the Kardashians. It's toxic and it can also backfire and make like us think that we don't have enough, and then we're all just like trying to shop and get all this materialistic things that we don't really need. So the mindset is huge, and to break away from an appearance of some kind is ultimately, if you think about it, if you step back from it, it's kind of pointless and stupid. I think we all, even myself, could use that discipline of self-restraint when it comes to buying stuff. Swiping your card on getting Starbucks and taking that Uber ride and yada, 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 yada. It's hard. Definitely easier said than done. A huge one from living in a city is avoiding the hype traps. There's a ton of hype traps when it comes to the nightclubs or the big music festivals or all the touristy events and all these things. Yes, they're fun and they can be really nice. Like, I'm not one to say you can't live and have a fun time and do what you want, because like I've done these things. You got to go experience them yourselves, but don't fall into the trap of you're continuously doing these things. It's overhyped. These events can be overhyped. Drinks are overpriced. Food is overpriced. I recommend pre-gaming before you go to these things. Go to a nice little dive bar and just have a couple beers with your friends before you go to the thing, because trust me, eat before you go or something. Like you will save a lot of money. And this all kind of wraps up into budgeting. And I know we've all heard this advice before for any big decision that you're thinking of making. If it's a move, if it's a change in your life, a change in your lifestyle, having a family, doing these things, like you gotta budget and you gotta save and you gotta have that kind of discipline. Something that I use a lot that's really convenient is an app called Rocket Money. On that app, it will show you the money that's coming in, that's coming out, even the bills that are coming up. Like, it's very consistent and easy to navigate to see where your money is going. Number 4, being scrappy. So it's so fun to me. I love thrifting. I love DIY projects. These are the things that will save you money from just buying brand new from big name brands. Sure, you want to have a little touch of luxury here and there, but ultimately, if you just go thrifting, for one, it's so much better for the environment. Reusing items, we don't just throw them away. There's so much waste that goes on in this world. Going to a thrift store, you'll find some good finds. You can even find really good brand, good quality items, vintage items. Some of the thrift stores that I do recommend would be like Value Village Discount or Salvation Army, Goodwill. Even in the spring and the summer, this one might not be for everyone because it can be a little gross, but if you go to like alleyways, people will throw out really nice stuff in the garbage when they're like doing spring cleaning or something, or they're moving. You'll find some decent items just in the trash. Like I picked up, I don't know if you can see this, but this side table, I found that in the garbage. I found it in an alleyway like 2 years ago and I still use it to this day. I think it's great. One man's trash is your treasure. And tips on thrifting. Most thrift stores have sales on the color of tags that they are to kind of keep pushing items in and out. I would avoid going on the weekends if you can. Mondays, Tuesday, early week during the work hours are really great times because no one's really in there and you get fresh items. And I'm also gonna throw in like DIYing. So if you can trade your time for money, great way to save. If you want to upcycle an item that you have in your home instead of buying something new, if you want to reuse something, like you can do it yourself. You can figure it out. There's so many videos on YouTube of teaching you how to do a thing that you don't need to spend money on. So lastly, for number 5, this one's a little unique one, but for me it made a big impact. So I work remote. When I moved to Chicago, when I moved to the city, I've only worked remote. I haven't been in a physical office or a physical space that I need to clock in and out every day. That has saved me a lot of money because the cost of commuting, getting public transportation or a Lyft or an Uber, that adds up. Needing to get a lunch and buy food and drinks, happy hour with your coworkers, leaving your house, you usually end up spending money. And if I don't leave my house a ton because I work remotely during the day. So make my own foods. I have my own workspace, my own office, and that kind of helps lower a lot of those regular costs that you would have if you had to go into a physical place. There are a lot of jobs out there that are still offering remote work. If you're interested, for me, I do freelancing and graphic design, web design kind of stuff. That's been like a huge shift in work culture. It's not for everybody, but honestly, it creates a lot of flexible hours and a good work-life balance in my view. And when it comes to like setting up your office at home, of course, because I do think it's important if you work from home to have a separate space from your living. And got my desk partly from Facebook Market and then also IKEA. I love IKEA for getting office supplies and furniture, things like that for a really decent price. So I got my computer and monitor from a friend who was just selling it, so that was a huge discount on me. So thinking of ways of how you can save money when it comes to building your own office is really doable. Asking your employer if you are working remote, if they're willing to pay and ship you an equipment. I've had a job where they sent me a laptop that I worked from or a monitor, so asking them if they're willing to work with you to compensate for getting equipment that you need or the software that you need. Remote working, a great money saver if you can. That's my video on the 5 ways that I make living in the city more affordable for me. If any of these topics speak to you, give a like down below. If you have any additional things or something I didn't mention that helps you just make life a little bit more easier, write it down below so we can all learn from each other. I love engaging with you guys and I appreciate you for watching. If you stayed this long, you're awesome. I hope you have an amazing day and I'll see you next time. Bye.